and welcome to this week's Karma Cards. What a week. We've got a full moon with a lunar eclipse happening on Friday, May 5th. And it is the full moon in Scorpio, which is about already a type of ending or a transformation, but it's connected to the south node. So the lunar node points right now are in Taurus, where the north node is, and Scorpio, where the south node is. So this is a south node lunar eclipse full moon. So it's all about this big release, this big letting go. And not only that, but this is the last time we're going to have an eclipse here, because in July, the lunar node points are going to change to Aries and Libra. So there is this kind of chapter end culmination of some kind of big energy. And where I would look if I were you is I'd look at my natal chart and see where Scorpio lies in my natal chart. So where you find Scorpio is where you're going to find something coming to an end, a chapter wrapping up for you, and it's got a big release energy connected to it. So with the eclipses being about a letting go and a release anyway, this is something that's been probably the wrap up of over a year that's happened in this sector of your chart. So take a look at your natal chart, look for Scorpio. That's where this is all going to be happening in your personal life. On the collective level, Scorpio and Taurus connect to financial systems and how we deal with money. And what's interesting is Scorpio rules over shared money, right? So usually things like finances that you share with someone else, shared resources. This could be also shared like amongst us collectively. Taxes are ruled by Scorpio. So some big ending coming in with May 5th. And this is sort of I would say the big push point, but we're still going to see the effects of it for the coming 6 months. So we know stuff's going on in the financial sector of the world, and we're probably going to see some stuff playing out in the world with this eclipse, but also for up to 6 months afterwards. And since it's a chapter closing, final end, there's a good chance that we're going to see that disruption we've been kind of like all, bracing for, or at least feeling energetically, is coming to an end with the financial chapter. And we know that they're also trying to introduce central bank digital currency in the United States that they want to roll out in July, which will be interesting. And I did a reading on that, so you should check out my What in the World event readings on digital currency. You can hear what the cards said about that. But anyway, money is a part of this. But you also want to look at where it's directly affecting you, which is about your own natal chart and where Scorpio is sitting. The message I have for you this week from the team literally is about endings, and how sometimes, endings generally also infer another chapter is starting, just like with Scorpio. Scorpio is the life-death transformation point in the zodiac, and it talks about the death of something so that something new can be born. And while we're going through our ascension upgrade, and we are in that corridor of shifting completely from the 3D into the 5D, 4D really does represent a bridge or a corridor. It's not a location, it's a transmutation, it's transportation. It takes you from one to the other. And one of the things that people are feeling and are going to feel and continue to feel is the fact that there are some things in their life that, even if they felt good, even if they were in alignment, they don't get to go with us into higher frequencies. And one of the principles that we are meant to practice as we increase our own frequency, our own consciousness, is detachment. And I noticed that this is the message I keep getting. I got the Three of Swords that came up, and the Three of Swords is about the ending or the severance or the loss of something, and the emotional energy around it, that even when it's for the good, that we can still feel pain, the pain of the separation, the pain of something ending. And this is a pain that we're going to have to process and also transmute ourselves. But with this big full moon energy that's so much about this end, this letting go, we can experience a significant level of sort of a pain or a discomfort. And it might not be it's not the kind of pain where it's like necessarily grief level, though it could get there for some people. But it is that discomfort of, I was content with this, and why does this have to leave? And the only thing I can think of when I ask my team that for myself, that I get back from them is, I was content with this, why does it have to leave? And all I get back is, it's unnecessary. It won't be necessary moving forward. So for example, I talk a lot about ascension, and a lot of the work I do is around understanding that process and going through it and trying to speak to it and share it with other people. That's not going to be something that I do when we transform, when we're on the other side of it. We won't need to talk about it. We will all have collectively been through it and have a much deeper understanding, much deeper than anything I could tell you. Obviously, your own experience is going to have a profound weight and depth to you, and that won't require an outside explanation. And so even though what I'm doing right now might be helpful or encouraging or positive, it would be completely unnecessary once we get over to the other side, and I would have to let that go. Could you imagine me talking about something continuously that we all have already been through and have had such a significant personal experience around? It wouldn't make sense. But these are the kind of things that we're all being asked to transform, and it might be in places where you feel pretty solid or pretty good, like you're happy with it, and then this energy of change or ending is coming in, and it might feel unwelcome even. That level of release and detachment work is something we're going to have to practice. And I can't even begin to say that I know what it feels like to be okay with that. I feel like if you're already in it, you know what it feels like to have kind of like the foundation of what you built rocked. And I've been going through that too. I've been feeling the changes. Things are changing. I have to do things differently. I have to let things go. I am definitely a person who enjoys building with intention my future and my goals and plans. And even those are things that we have to learn to hold lightly and with detachment, that, these plans may not come to pass as you envision them now. That doesn't mean something that is maybe even more relevant to you or more fulfilling isn't coming in its place. It's that place of feeling it go. It's like, the image is coming to my head, man, this dates me a lot. But I remember when I was little, there was that movie, Mr. Mom, with Michael Keaton. And you might have to go way back. It's like early 80s. I was young, but I remember this part, maybe because I was sort of the age of that child in the movie. But there was one of his sons in the movie is like, I don't know, 4 or 5. And he's got his security blanket, his whoopee, right? And the dad's saying, okay, it's time to let this go now. And the child is content with his security blanket. Feels good. It's been there for him the whole time. Why would he let this go? But apparently it was time to let that blanket go. And so you see the kid go through the struggle with letting this blanket go, and ultimately the kid ends up deciding to throw the blanket into the fire and sits there and watches it burn. And that's the imagery that's coming up with this message I'm trying to share to you. It's like the things that you believe give you security are not what real security is based on. And my team has been pounding me with this message since 2016 about realizing that as long as you're attached to something outside of yourself for a sense of security, that sense of security is easily taken away. And I guess at some point we're all going to experience, since we're in this axis that talks about this type of security between Taurus and Scorpio, we're all going to hit that point where the thing that we were very comfortable with, that gave us a sense of security, is going to be rocked. We're going to feel that when the money system does its little show that it's going to do, because we are going to change. That system is collapsing and will change, and I am on the timeline where it changes for the better, for sure. But that's going to rock a lot of people. That'll be the one that rocks a lot of people. So if you're in a different place where you're like, I know that's going to change and I'm cool as a cucumber, that's great. But it also means, like, wherever you're attaching to something outside of yourself, whether it's the number of clients you have, or if it's your savings, or if it's your home, or it's your partner or something like that. I'm not saying these things are getting taken away per se, but something fundamentally shifts and changes, and you realize, even if it's still there, even if they're still there, that it's not creating the security you thought you were getting. And so that need to externalize security definitely comes to an end. And what they say with the Three of Swords is it's painful, but not necessarily painful in a devastating way. It's like painful in a way like that kid making the choice to throw his blanket into the fire. He's like, I know I have to grow up. I know I have to move forward. And I was okay with this part of my life, and I still have to let it go. That right there, I'm okay with this, and I still have to let it go. And it makes me wonder if that happens during the death process for some people. Some people live these great lives and they still have to pass over. And maybe they have that feeling where it was like, I'm so content with this and I still have to let it go. And that's unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, one of the lessons of humanity is learning about how to detach and how to let go and how to move on. And this cycle we're in right now, especially this week with this very intense lunar energy, we're going to be feeling that. So how do we do this? And I think, again, it comes back to figuring out how to create internal security, which is knowing that all is well. I was well before this baby blanket, and I will be fine after my baby blanket, or whatever that is, right? I was fine before this career, and I will be fine after this career. I was fine before this relationship. I will be fine after. I am me, and I am solid in that, right? I know that I am, and I know I'm connected to all that is. That might be one way you could find that internal sense of security, so that when we go through this period, which is going to be intense to some level, and again, I would look at your natal chart of where Scorpio is so you can really hone in on that. And that might even give you the answer about how to create that sense of ease as you move through a turbulent moment. But you're going to be fine. And ultimately, that's the kind of message that came through in that other reading, is like, there will be turbulence. It will feel like the end, but it turns out it's not. And you are moving to something better. However, we've got to process those feelings anyway, because it's part of the journey. It's just part of this process. So hopefully giving you that heads up helps you ease into this energy where you're like, growth is turbulent sometimes, and I get it. And it's going to be okay. I was fine before this, and I will be fine after this, and I'm fine right now. So with that, let's see what this week's karma cards have to say. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks of cards, planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you have for us this week? And I have 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what is the guidance you need this week? Are you looking for action related guidance, or how things resolve? You want to know what the outcomes are. And of course, you can always choose both. While you are choosing, this reading is for May 3rd through May 10th. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Mercury, which, let me mention one more time, is in retrograde until May 10th, which is the end of this reading period. So we've got a Mercury retrograde card in the sign of Sagittarius, which is our higher self, higher understanding, higher awareness. in the 10th house, and this is the house that's commonly referred to as career, but it can also mean about what you put back out into the world, what you're giving out. For those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to communicate your highest ideals responsibly. This is interesting because we're being asked to communicate, right, during a Mercury retrograde, where communication can be it can feel like it's not congealing. It can feel very mismatched in energy. So the responsibility part is the part I want to focus on. Our highest ideals are, what you believe the best of this is. What are you working towards? What are you striving towards? What world do you want to create? And the responsibly part is recognizing that, it's up to you. So when we're communicating our ideals, we want to be very clear that we're not projecting those on you need to change to be this version of the highest, it's kind of like people who are social justice warriors tend to project onto other people what they need to do to change. And to do this responsibly, we need to more or less project what we're going to do. What am I going to put out in the world? We're taking responsibility. We're taking ownership. We're not placing the ownership on someone else. And so when we're communicating, we're not saying this is what you should do to blah, blah, blah. We're saying this is what I'm going to do to blah, blah, blah. Right? This is how I'm going to raise my standards. And by doing that, we are showing integrity, right? Because then words, and when our actions align to that shows integrity, but then we also become the mentor or the example of how to do it, which is a much better position to be in than to project or to demand someone else change. We be the change we want to see. Mental action at this time: analyze the rules of success. And I feel like that's pretty much in alignment with what I just said. Success is when your words and actions are in alignment and create those outcomes, right? So again, it's about taking responsibility for what you put out there. This is what I put out there. And the more conscious we are about what we put out there, the more successful we tend to be, right? Because we're thinking about it, we're actually doing it in the order that creates an outcome we desire. So successful outcomes look like, to me, I think about it, my emotions, I generate emotions for how I think about it. My emotions dictate my behaviors influence my actions, and my actions become outcomes. That to me is like the rules of success right there. So it's asking us to consider that. And that means that we're going all the way back to our thinking, which is what Mercury rules, right? If we go all the way back to our thoughts about something, then the whole chain reaction goes off in a very conscious way. If we're not conscious of the seed point, which is our thoughts, then we get sort of a mismatched or undesired outcome. Physical action at this time: let your mind tell you how to get out in the world and become a person of power and status. This, I feel, just reinforces the entire chain I just spoke about. So your mind, it all comes back to your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, this whole spread sort of talks to you about thoughts becoming things. And it's as simple as that. However, we've got to be clear. We've got to be aware of our thoughts. So a big portion of this that's really kind of not being told to us is to get conscious of your thoughts. And to do that is to slow down, stop, and listen. This is where meditation becomes huge, because meditation is all about trying to be present, right? It's trying to be present with yourself. But guess who gets to show up a lot during meditation? Are your thoughts. But this is a perfect opportunity to see what your thoughts are doing when you actually slow down to just pay attention. So meditation is really the key to being aware of your thoughts, which then influence your emotions, which then dictate your behaviors, which then create your actions, which then produce outcomes. All right, so now let's look at outcomes for Mercury in Sagittarius in the 10th house of your career or what you put out into the world. The spiritual outcome at this time is the awareness of insights to understand your destiny. I love this. This reading is sort of piggybacking off of itself constantly. So the awareness of your insights, right? So again, awareness of your thoughts. The meditation part is so important, and it's the key to helping you move forward consciously and create consciously. And when you're doing that, when you're creating consciously, you are naturally going to move towards your destiny. So the highest version of you lives within your destiny, as does every other version, but it's kind of at the heart of your destiny is your highest potential. And by getting aware of our thoughts and then starting to think consciously so that we create consciously, we're fast tracking ourselves to that highest potential. Mental outcome at this time, many thoughts about or from the wisdom of where you are going. So, again, there is a very meditative aspect to this reading. So we've got Mercury in here, which is about our thinking, but in order to get awareness of our thinking, there is that meditative aspect. And with the energy I was talking about before, about these endings or the shifting and change, really the only way that you're going to be able to navigate it is to sit with it, is to be present. You know, many of us, when we hear something might come to an end that we're not comfortable with, our first action might be to try and control it, to try and get in there and stop it, stop the train, right? Like push back against it. But that energy is not going to be productive and helpful, and it'll only increase the amount of pain you feel because it's a train that's much stronger than you. It's an energy force that's rolling through all of humanity, all of this experience, because it's preparing us for what's to come. So the severings have to happen. So rather than fighting it, is to contemplate what it means. What did I make this mean? Why is it so hard to let go if I'm experiencing resistance to letting go? Why is it so hard to let that go? What am I making that mean? These are the questions that are going to get you to the wisdom and help you understand where you're going, help you understand, you know, what that really meant to you and what hole was it filling, if there is a hole, right? Was it about worth? Was it about a sense of value or purpose? Was it about, you know, love? What was it about for you, this thing that's so hard to let go of, if that's what you're going through? So the sitting with the contemplation and the meditation and the paying attention to our thoughts leads us into this awareness and wisdom and helps us see where this is taking us. Physical outcome at this time, many words resulting from the understanding of your career or what you put out in the world. And I always say that, what you put out in the world, because sometimes some of us feel like it's not necessarily a career, and they might feel like they're driven more by a purpose about what they're here to do. So it's not about how I make money in the world as so much as how am I here for the world. So there's a lot of information is about to come forward for you. A lot of, like, again, speaking about it, sharing about it verbally, or maybe journaling about it. But in any case, there's a type of expression you're going to understand deeper your sense of purpose or your career, what it is you're here to do and give back to the world, comes in with so much clarity, even as things are sort of leaving. And as they leave, again, that clarity remains. The understanding remains. In fact, it deepens and it grows broader, and you might see, oh, that's why this had to go now, because this is why I'm here. So those of you who have been really trying to hone in on your sense of purpose, this week might be a lightning rod for you in terms of starting to really solidify or get that. And so as you can see, something big comes in behind this release energy, but it's like labor pains in a way, where you know something good is coming, but it's hard. You know, you still got to push that baby out. You still got to go through that pain in order to get to this thing. And so in the end, what happens is the memory of the pain diminishes quite quickly, and you're left with feeling that whatever struggle I went through was absolutely worth it to get here. And so that's what I kind of want to leave you with for this week, that whatever struggle you have to go through, the memory of the pain fades quickly, and you end up feeling like it's totally worth it to get where I am now. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Mwah. I'll see you on the other side of this moon, and I'll talk to you next week.